You're sitting there after your crash. Your car is totaled and you feel pain in your back or your neck. You get a call from the insurance company and they're asking for just a quick statement. But before you say a word or accept a dime, it's important to understand this. If you don't understand how car accident claims work in Texas, you could end up walking away with thousands of dollars less than what you deserve. Hi, I'm Max the Axe, the gold standard in personal injury, and I've seen way too many clients totally shortchanged because they trusted the wrong number. This video breaks down exactly how car accident claims are valued by insurance companies. From medical bills to missed time from work to those things that the insurance companies don't want you to know. So by the end of this video, you'll understand what your claim is really worth and how to avoid settling for less than you should. Let's get right into it, because if you're watching this video, you're probably sitting at home in Texas thinking about one particular question. How much is my claim really worth? You've got bills to pay, you've got a car that may be totaled, and you've got neck and back pain that's been bothering you since the crash. You want a real answer, not some sort of legal nonsense and empty promises. You want just the facts. Now I'm going to walk you through exactly how we value car accident claims here in Texas, step by step and in plain English. By the end, you'll know exactly what to look out for, what numbers really matter, and how to avoid some red flags when the insurance company calls. What value really means in a Texas car accident case. Okay, let's start with the basics by defining what does value mean. Value is the total compensation of what your case is worth, the total amount of money that the insurance company will pay in a settlement, or if it goes to trial, what the jury will award in a verdict. So there's no special calculator that spits out the perfect number for your case. Every case is different, and it usually hinges on two things. The first is liability, or the amount of fault of the defendant. And the second is damages, or what your injuries are worth. These damages are what you've suffered or you've lost as a result of the crash. These categories include the medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, and physical impairment. Liability or fault is about who caused the crash, and that really affects the bottom line number. We're going to get into each of those, but please keep in mind that no two crashes are exactly the same. The way that the jury is going to look at a fender bender on I-35 or a rollover crash in Amarillo are going to be very different. However, the fundamental principle is always the same. What is a jury going to do at trial? How much is a jury going to award you, the plaintiff? That is what matters, and that is the consistent theme for determining the value of your case. And to figure that out, we got to look at some important categories that are going to be different in every case. Medical bills, the foundation of your claim. The first place we look are the medical bills. That might include the emergency room, the ambulance, physical therapy, MRIs or other imaging, pain management visits, injections, maybe surgery. Whatever medical visits that you had to go to because of this crash, the bills for them are the foundation of every case. Here's the thing about calculating the bills. In Texas, it doesn't matter if you used private health insurance, government health insurance, or if you paid cash, or if the medical providers are waiting to be paid. What does matter is the total amount of what was paid or what is owed to those medical providers. Sometimes that is the full sticker price of the bill, and other times it's what your health insurer paid for those bills. So to illustrate this, let me tell you a story about one of my clients, Maria, who went to the emergency room after a crash. Her ER bill was $40,000, but she paid with her health insurance, and her health insurance only paid $9,000, and the rest was adjusted off or written off by the hospital. Because her health insurance only paid $9,000, the number that matters is the $9,000, not the $40,000 sticker price. However, if she didn't have health insurance and the hospital wanted to be paid the full sticker price of $40,000 for her outstanding bill, well, then the number that's important is that $40,000. So when you look at your own claim, please pay attention to exactly what was paid or what is still owed. Those are the numbers that matters. If something was written off, that number doesn't matter. Also, if you're thinking about your own claim, do not forget about future medical expenses. Once you settle, that's the end of the road. You don't get to come back later because you find out that you eventually needed surgery from the crash. Once you settle once, it's over. If your doctors think that you'll need more medical visits or medical procedures, you have to include that when you think about the value of your own claim. If you've been recommended surgery, but you're going to put it off for 3 months, you should be thinking about that price of the future surgery when you negotiate with the insurance company. 3, lost wages and lost earning capacity. Next, we need to look at your income and your job. If the crash caused you to miss work, lose hours, or have to take a different, lower paying job, well, then that's something that the crash took away from you. This is called lost wages. Let's take a look at a real world example. One of my former clients named James, he was a construction worker in Dallas. In a crash, he fractured his left leg, which meant that he couldn't work for about 8 weeks. So we had to calculate every dollar that he missed, and that included overtime that he usually got on the weekends. We calculated exactly how much he would have received if he had never been in this crash, and that's how you get the lost wage number. But what if your injuries are long-term or permanent? Maybe you can't go back to the same job that you used to have, or maybe it requires you to work fewer hours because of the pain. In those cases, with permanent loss to your income, that's called lost earning capacity. This is just a fancy way of saying the permanent loss to your ability to make income. And to figure this number out, we have to look at your work history, your skills, and also maybe hire an expert to evaluate how much money you will lose for the course of your life. This is especially concerning for young people who are involved in specialized trades. If the crash prevents you from pursuing a higher paying career and instead you have to take a lower paying job for the rest of your life, that is significant lost earning capacity, pain, suffering, and the human side of your claim. But not everything that you lose in a crash has a receipt attached to it. Not everything is calculated by seeing what's not in your bank account. Texas law recognizes that pain, suffering, physical impairment, and mental anguish are real damages that need to be compensated for. But how do we put a dollar amount on these damages? Some insurance companies use a formula that's based on the medical bills. For example, 1.5 times or 2 times or 3 times what your past medical bills are. Sometimes insurance companies just use a multiple of your past medical bills. So if your medical bills are $100,000, they might give you $200,000 to pay for your pain and suffering. However, not everyone does that, and this is just a general guess or starting point. What really matters is how are you going to prove these damages at trial? For example, if you used to coach your son's baseball team, but you can no longer run and do those duties, that's a real damage that has been taken from your life. Or if you can't sleep well, if you used to sleep 8 hours a night, but now you toss and turn and maybe you get a few hours, that's a real damage that was taken from your life. The human experience is part of the claim's value, but what's more important is how you're going to prove that. It's one thing to say about yourself, oh, my life is different, this is how my life has changed. But what really matters is, do you have other people in your life that can tell your story for you? At our firm, we specialize intensely on finding the right before and after witnesses, the people who have seen you before this crash and after this crash and can tell you the story of what was taken from your life. This might be coworkers, supervisors, family, or friends. Anyone who can talk well about what was taken from your life is going to be a good person to put on the stand. Here's another real-world example. One of my former clients, Jacqueline, loved to play the piano. She loved to play the organ for her church, and she used to teach piano to kids who were still learning. She used to play piano every day for hours, but after the crash, because of the pain that she would experience from her neck traveling down her fingers, she was not able to play the piano as much or at the same length she used to. She was often limited to just 2 or 3 minutes a day. And for her, this loss was everything. We made sure to include this story in our demands to the insurance company, and Jacqueline was very pleased with the results that we got for her case. In Texas, there's no cap for pain and suffering on a car accident case, unless you're against the government, and that's a completely separate issue. So your attorney's skill at painting the picture of what was taken from your life is the most advantageous thing you can look for when choosing an attorney. This is what's going to make the real difference at trial. Property damage, not just your car. A car crash almost always means damage to your car, but there can be other things that are damaged as well. Did your cell phone get damaged? Was your laptop smashed? These things can add up and should be part of your car accident claim. As for your car, the insurance company should pay for the repairs or the fair market value if your car is totaled. In Texas, you have the right to use your own auto repair shop, not just the one that the insurance company suggests. We'll talk more about what to do when your car is totaled in the next video, but for now, please know that you should save all receipts of the repair, of the towing costs, of the rental car. All of these things can be used in your claim. Who was at fault? Texas modified comparative fault rules. Here's where many Texans get tripped up. Texas uses a modified comparative fault rule. In plain language, this means that if you were partly at fault for the crash, Your damages are discounted by the percentage of fault that the jury determines you to have. However, if your fault is determined to be greater than 50%, then you get nothing. So let's say that you're rear-ended at a stoplight, but the defendant says that you slammed on your brakes out of nowhere. Ultimately, it's up to the jury to determine who was at fault. If your total damages are $50,000, but the jury determines that you were 20% at fault, that means that your final take-home will be $40,000. Early on, when you're negotiating your claim with the insurance company, they will always try to put as much blame on you as possible, but you don't have to take that. Stand your ground and make sure you have a good attorney in your corner to argue that you had as little fault as possible. Remember, fault is not always just black and white. Don't let an adjuster bully you into accepting a smaller payment than you deserve just because they say that you're at fault. In my experience, having done so many trials in different states, I know that defendants will make up anything to try to put some fault on you, and the insurance company will be having their back when it comes to negotiating. 7. Insurance policy limits, the ceiling on your recovery. One of the most important but often overlooked pieces of the puzzle is the insurance policy limits. In Texas, the minimum insurance required to drive on the roads is $30,000 per person or $60,000 for the total crash if multiple people were injured. Also, property damage insurance of $25,000. If the person who hit you only had the minimum required insurance, your case may be capped at that amount. For example, even if your hospital bills are $50,000, if the defendant only has $30,000 in policy and there's no other insurance to get, you may be capped at that amount. However, there might be some more insurance money to go after. You may have your own underinsured motorist coverage, which protects you when you get hit by someone who's not driving with enough insurance. Also, there may be another entity that's at fault, such as a corporate entity if the defendant was driving for a company. This is why it's so important to understand the total amount of insurance that's available for your case. And sometimes your insurance can step in to fill the gap. Settling versus suing. How this impacts value. Most car accident cases in Texas settle out of court. The insurance company makes you an offer, your attorney negotiates with them, and you eventually reach an agreement. But if they only give you lowball offers or deny your claim altogether, then you may need to file a lawsuit. Going to court can raise the stakes, but it also takes longer and comes with its own risks. Most cases settle for more as you get closer to trial. However, some don't. Usually, your case value increases as your lawyer starts to create more and more evidence that's going to be presented to the jury. But remember, you should never settle until you know the full extent of the medical treatment that you're going to need for the rest of your life. If you're in the middle of treatment, it may make more sense to wait to get a clearer picture of your medical future. Don't rush. The insurance company often wants you to settle as quickly as possible before you realize how bad your injuries really are. Real Texas case examples. Let me give you a few real-world Texas case examples to help show you how the numbers play out. A truck driver in Houston was rear-ended while waiting at a red light. He didn't need surgery, but he did need a particular medical procedure where he had to have his nerves burned off every couple years for the rest of his life. Even though he didn't miss that much time from work, the future medical expenses were about $500,000. He didn't miss that much time from work, but his pain and suffering and physical impairment were serious. Those damages were estimated to be about $1.1 million for a total settlement of $2 million. A carpenter in San Antonio was hit by a distracted driver. His bills were only $5,000 because he only needed a couple months of physical therapy. His pain and suffering during this time was estimated to be about $10,000 for a total settlement of $15,000. A young mother in Fort Bend County was rear-ended as she was waiting at a red light. She needed 2 surgeries and her medical bills were about $700,000. Her future medical expenses were estimated to be about $1 million and pain and suffering estimated to be about $800,000, bringing a total compensation to $2.5 million. Finally, a young woman in Houston was waiting to turn right and yielding to some pedestrians that were crossing the road. As she was waiting, she was rear-ended by a truck. Her past medical bills were about $36,000, and her future medical bills were estimated to be about $174,000. At trial, even though she could have gotten it, she asked the jury for $0 in pain and suffering and physical impairment as long as they gave her the future medical expenses. And of course, the jury gave her every penny that she asked for, a total of about $210,000. These cases and more can be found in the case results tab of our website at LoneStarInjuryAttorneys.com. So here's what you can do today to maximize every dollar you deserve. 1, see a doctor right away and follow all of their instructions. 2, keep every receipt, every bill, every work note, everything in writing. 3, don't talk to the insurance companies unless you really know what you're doing. They are trained to minimize your payout. 4, write down in your own words how this crash has affected your life, both your personal life, your social life, and your professional life. 5 is call an attorney who knows what they're doing with handling Texas car crash cases and push back against the insurance company's lowball offers. What's next? You now know the basics of what goes into your Texas car crash claim, from the medical bills to the lost wages to the pain and suffering, the property damage, and who's at fault. Every case is different, but those are the building blocks. But what if your car is totaled and you still have a loan on it? This is a situation that trips up a lot of Texas folks that could result in you making payments for a car that you can't even drive. I cover this exact problem in my next video, how to handle a totaled car when you still have a loan. Don't miss it. Go watch it over here to protect your wallet and your rights. I'll see you over there.